Michael, before the break, you were talking about some of the campaign gaffes or inconsistencies on the side of Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca. He wasn't the only political casualty of this election. Andrew Horwath has stepped down as leader of the NDP. Where do you see, or what went wrong with the NDP's strategy going into this election?
Well, a number of things. And there were two things that happened that were really out of Andrea Horwath's control, which did impact her and frankly had an impact in some of the seats that they lost that they previously held. I'm thinking Thunder Bay, Atikokan, and Timmins specifically. Andrea Horwath was unfortunate to contract COVID and have to go into self-isolation in the campaign. That's not a mistake. That's just a bout of bad luck. And it's certainly unfortunate for her. The self-isolation occurred when she was supposed to do a tour through Northern Ontario, where she did lose those two seats. She did manage to grab one from the Liberals, though, in Thunder Bay Superior North. Then, a few weeks later, she was supposed to return to Northern Ontario, and on the day of her tour, her plane malfunctioned, and she had to reroute and stay in Southern Ontario. So she had two very bad, just bouts of luck that were out of her control. But certainly, she also ran opposed to the 413. We saw candidates then coming out in favor of it and, trying to talk out of both sides of their mouths because it was very locally popular, and certainly losing the support of those trade labor unions that used to fund the Working Families Coalition, often the bread and butter of NDP get out the vote efforts were these organizations, and to lose them to Doug Ford, not just have them stay neutral, but to come out and oppose, to have her former MPP Paul Miller in Hamilton's East Stony Creek come out and say that the NDP has lost their way under her. She was a victim of all of that, and the NDP's forgetting their roots, forgetting that they are the party of labor and trying to become the party of downtown Toronto and downtown Ottawa.
Yeah, so do you see this as a divide almost between what I would call like faculty lounge politics and working class families? Maybe the NDP has forgotten its historical roots in terms of who they represented. And for reasons maybe you can enlighten us on, Doug Ford has attracted many of those voters, people who voted NDP their entire life, who have now voted for Doug Ford twice.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head that it's really a great divide between two traditional constituency groups of the NDP. One has really that labor faction, the folks who used to deliver Oshawa to the federal NDP fairly consistently, but it's been a conservative seat since 2004 now. But those folks who've really stayed the same. Their concerns hasn't changed. They want to have better working conditions, better wages, more jobs, and a stronger economy so we don't see layoffs and plant closures. And then that faculty lounge sect that you mentioned, which has frankly become more left-wing and more caught up in higher taxes and more regulation and really actually looking to displace the jobs that those labor unions fill. So they went from being able to coexist on some common ground to being a house divided, and Doug Ford did sweep in and took advantage of that, and it's not unprecedented. We saw that with Boris Johnson's win in the United Kingdom in the last election, where he regained the conservative majority. We saw an attempt; it was an unsuccessful attempt by Aaron O'Toole to do the same here in Canada in the 2021 election. So certainly, Doug Ford, I think, is the first in Canada to really strongly do it, but I think we'll see more of that as the NDP continue to be lost to the woke crowd over the lunch bucket crowd.
So we have about a minute before we go to break. Why hasn't this recipe worked federally? A lot of federal conservatives talked about the need to win the 905. Here, Doug Ford has won every seat except for one in the 905. Why hasn't that translated over to federal politics?
Well, if you look, Stephen Harper did almost sweep the 905 in the 2011 campaign. And then in 2014, Kathleen Wynne regained the Liberals won the 2011 election in Ontario provincially. And then in 2014, Kathleen Wynne turned it into an increased majority. And both of those wins were heavily focused on the 905. So, historically speaking, Ontario will split their ticket and elect a plurality of Liberal MPPs or MPs and do the inverse with the Conservatives. So it's historically precedented to have this divide. So if we're going to look and try and read the tea leaves of what this means for the federal situation, it actually probably means renewed support for Justin Trudeau in a future federal election within this Conservative mandate.